Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 39 of my modded Factorio playthrough. Enjoy. So we're producing a lot of the basic components we need to build things, like different types of circuits and our science. But we're really not producing any of the actual machines we need, like inserters or belts. So that's something we need to work on. But in the meantime, we kind of need to start thinking about expanding our factory, because that's kind of the point of building all these new machines, is to allow us to more easily expand, because handcrafting takes forever. And one thing I'd like to do is scan more of the map. These are just the base tier 1 radars, and looks like we've scanned just about as much as we're going to. So I would really like to move these radars out further. But also, go into research. We can research the Mark II radars. Just requires the basic electronic boards and steel, which we're already making, and also it's very cheap to research, so I will get that started. And while that's researching, which probably won't take very long, we need to start building some components. Before we can build things like inserters and belts, you see there's some common elements here. Motors. We're not making motors yet, and since motors are fairly difficult to make, it's something that's worth bussing. So you see how this has an intermediate step of iron wheels, but then the electric motor requires the base motor and copper. So when you're considering what to bus, you want to think, is it a component that gets smaller when you make it, or a component which gets larger? So if you look at an iron gear wheel, it takes 2 iron plates, but you only get 1 gear as a result. That's an example of an item that gets smaller. 2 things go in, but then 1 thing goes out. So if you wanted to bus iron gears, that's something that you could do. Ooh, radars are done already. I generally don't, because they're too easy to make. Like, generally I like to bus things that are hard to make, and gears just require plates. But if you look at these electronics here, basic electronic components, you see that 1 tin wire and 1 carbon goes in, but then we get 5 out. So it more than doubles. That's definitely not something you want to bus, because you'll instantly run out of space on your bus because they expand. So whenever you're thinking about things to bus, you want to think, 1, does it get bigger or smaller when I make it? And 2, how easy it is to make. And when looking at that, and also just, I guess a third thing you can look at is how many of these do we actually need? Like, if you need a bunch of them, it's definitely something to do. And motors and electric motors go into everything because of AAI Industries really stuck them in. Just about every machine that moves use these things, so it's definitely worthwhile to make. So let's see, I like to try to have the top and the bottom symmetrical. So up top it looks like I had 3 spaces here, and then I place this up here. So see if I can drop this in the same spot. So that's 3 spaces. Does that look like it's lined up? Looks like it. So to make a motor, it requires a gear wheel and 2 iron plates every 0.6 seconds. And let's just theory craft here. If we put another one down, you can see that the gear wheel requires 0.5 seconds. So we can make gear wheels slightly faster than we make motors, but that's a close enough ratio, or I'll just say that's 1-to-1 ratio. So you see the gear wheel requires plates, and the motor requires a gear wheel and a plate. So this is an iron-only device. There's all sorts of ways that you could make this. But let me clear out some of these trees. There's really no right or wrong way to make something. I would just say better and worse ways to make something. There's no right or wrong, just better and worse. So I'm going to kind of reverse this here. I'm going to make this do the gear wheel, and then put a space right here, and then have this guy making the motors. So kind of my idea is the iron kind of comes in through here, and then motors go out there. And then we can put 1 on each side, so we can kind of double this. Like right here and right there. So the question is, how many motors do we want to make? How many copies of this? Well, for one, we can calculate how much iron per second we're going to be consuming. So each motor every 0.6 seconds requires 2 iron plates and a gear wheel, which itself is 2 iron plates. That's 4 plates every 0.6 seconds, but it runs at a speed of 0.75. So each one of these is going to consume 5 iron per second, which is quite a bit. That's actually because we're only producing 6 iron per second on average. So simply having these 2 machines here will consume 10 iron per second if they're running at full blast, and that's really all we can create. So I was thinking I might do 4 assembly machines worth of motors, but since this is going to consume most everything, and actually if we had 4 of these machines in total, that would be 20 iron per second, which we can't even put on one belt. We would need a red belt for that, so really this should be okay. So let's figure out the inserters here. Looks like 2 plates every 0.5, so that's 4 plates a second, but because it runs at a speed of 0.75, that's 3 plates, which is 2 inserters, 2 blue inserters. Since this machine runs faster than this one, it's going to be limited by the motor machine. So I'm going to look at the motor machine's requirements to figure out what kind of inserter we would need. 1 gear every 0.6 seconds times 0.75, that's 1.25. And that's just barely, but requires a blue. I'm going to put the blues on the side here because I'm going to want to put the power pole in the middle. And it's going to require twice as many iron plates, which is just barely requires 2 inserters. See, it looks like we are out of electronics. Grab some more. Oops, but I needed to make these long-handed. Grab from that other belt. There we go. And the output is just barely 1 blue. So 1 blue long right there, and a short right there. And that should be all we need. Let's run some power. I believe we have our wood production over here. That'll work. Alright, let's test it out and see if it works. Are we going to be able to fit it? Looks like it. Looks pretty good. Alright, where to bus it? I believe this one is going to be the one reserved for motors since we're doing circuits up top. So let's do an underground. And those are the motors. Kind of like how they look on the belt. They're fairly high definition little sprite there. Look neat. But we need to do a box here so we can start collecting them for personal uses. And that's going to run a while. You'd be surprised how much iron gets sucked up by these machines. It's a lot. So we just researched our radar Mark IIs, which is great. But something to consider is how far away these things are going to be. Oh, I didn't notice there. That's a biter nest that's really close to our radar up here. We'll have to take care of those guys. But if... see how many power poles we had to use to put this guy here? And we're going to go like twice as far, like way out here and way up there. So using just the standard poles, it's going to get old placing all those down. And just when we get a vehicle, we're going to be crashing into the poles every time we try to drive under them because they're so close together. So we should research electric energy distribution, which will unlock the medium and big power poles, which have a much longer wire reach. But you see they're pretty big, requiring 2 units of each of the packs and then 240, so that's fairly expensive. That's going to take a while to do. So in the meantime, it'd be nice to have something to take care of in the factory. And one thing we can do is near inserters. I know I've been talking about them. It's like, oh, this wouldn't be a problem if we had near inserters. See, they're much cheaper. And upgrading the factory and putting the near inserters in the place that they're needed will take some time, and that's something that we can do while we're researching electric power poles. To do this in an expedient manner, you kind of have to think ahead on your research and the things that you choose to do. But while that's going, wow, look how quickly it's going. I was thinking, well, we could take care of something else, but that's going to be done before we get to that. But, well, we might as well get to it anyway. We need to do some more motors. Now we're going to need electric motors, which require the base motor and some copper cable. So I'll just put this here for now. So every 0.8 seconds, we're going to need 6 copper cables. But at a speed of 75%, which means we need 5.625, so approximately 6 cables per second. And cables are something that we can make in an electronics assembling machine. There's the near inserters. But a cable machine will make cables, 4 cables every second. And we need 6 for this guy. So right there, we have a ratio of 3 of these machines to 2 of those machines. But I'm trying to think ahead of time, because technically we want these machines to match the speeds of these ones. And these guys are going to put out a motor every 0.6 seconds. Well, these guys take 0.8. So they're more or less balanced as is, but thinking ahead, I kind of want to have a side-by-side setup like this, because this kind of setup, I'll get rid of that flashing there. You know, if we wanted to copy it, all we'd have to do is just select this and use our robots and put it here, and then we've doubled the setup. But something like this, when it's on the side like this, is a little awkward. It's better to have both left and right sides of the belts being used at the same time. If that makes any sense, by having like a symmetrical left side and right side, assuming you have simple products like this. If you have a complicated product with many steps, like circuits for example, you see how it's kind of a one side to the other setup, because you can't really mirror it that easily. I mean, I guess you could, really, but you'd have to mirror all this stuff twice on the other side. It would be kind of messy. But when it comes to things like this, it's a little easier to do. So just in the spirit of symmetry, I'm going to mirror this on the other side, even though the capacity is slightly higher than we could support right here. I just want it to look symmetrical and be relatively future-proof. See, I like to have 2 spaces available. I'm going to have to move these things over a little bit. So those will be the copper cable machines. Oop, there needs to be a third one, though. And I believe the copper cable machines require 1 blue inserter for in and 2 for out. So let's see. Let's make a few. I'm just staring at these burner inserters. I think we can just get rid of them. Well, as far as we can go anyway, without electric motors. Just place these here. And then place those 4 in there, I believe. And finally, the motors are going to require electric motors, 1 regular motor. Which you could bring in here. And then the output would go up there. Looks like a yellow will be fine. And a long-handed out for that. I'm going to just hook this up and see how it works. So I'm already noticing a problem that the cables won't reach. But they would if we had the electric wires, or the electric energy distribution. I'll research that now. I don't know. It's probably going to take quite a while. In the meantime, I'm going to do this a little bit messy. Well, it's going to be real messy. Yeah, let's just test this for now. I want to make sure it works before committing to it. So this needs to be copper cable, or just copper plates. And we'll turn it into copper cable. I don't know, there's something just feels odd about that setup. I'm not sure what it is. So I want to test it just to make sure it works properly before I make myself look like an idiot by building it in full, and then obviously something's not working right. Oh, I see. Maybe that's what's wrong. It's 1 goes in and 2 go out. That might be the thing that was catching me off guard. Of course, these cables are definitely not going to reach. So that's going to be a bit of a problem. Yeah, I mean, I could build this differently with respect to the standard poles, but since we're going to get the upgraded one so soon. Yeah, that one's like never going to get power. I think it's going to work. It looks right now. I think I figured out what was looking wrong to me. So let's just say it's going to work. So we need to invert this on the other side. So let's make a quick recipe. Flip it around. Some of these might be off, but we can adjust them. Blue inserters. Looks like we're out of iron. Oh, and there's some right here. Oops, picked up some motors. Well, I guess I needed them anyway. In interest of symmetry. Put these up there. Alright, that should be it for those. Now we need to get copper in this bottom one here. Yeah, I was worried, like, when you have so many hookups like this, after a while you just don't know. You're just moving belts up and then you find out when you get there if there's a bunch of stuff in the way or not. So that should be pretty good. So now we just need to deliver the regular motors. Although the factory can't maintain this indefinitely because of the iron limitation, having this backup of motors is actually going to allow these machines to run at full power for quite some time. So maybe it wasn't a terrible idea to have them twice as many as we needed right there. There will be the electric motors. I guess I'll just leave that there for now, and since we have researched near inserters, we can go through the factory looking for near inserter fixes while we're waiting for the power poles to research. But these fixes are going to take a while, so let's save that for the next episode. I'll see you later.